removal and replacement of the disc pads. First thing to do while the car's on the ground is to loosen the wheel nuts, but don't remove them. After we've got the wheel off, after we've jacked up the car, and we will use the jacking point. The jacking point is here. We'll then remove the wheel. The next stage is of course to put an axle stand under a main suspension part. Even though we're not going to get right under the car, we still don't want it falling on us. Now, next we will release the caliper. We will use a 14mm spanner on the bolt at the base of the caliper. Note, not the one with the plastic on, this one. We'll remove that bolt completely. Then, not the outer cage, but we lift the inner pad holder up, give it a tug, and it comes up. Now, before we go any further, we'll just check that the caliper slides are loose. That one moves nice and easily, and the top one just pushed gently backwards and forwards. That one's nice and easy as well. This caliper was rebuilt about 2 years ago, so it's still in good order. What we're going to do now is just string the caliper up, and I'm using a bungee cord now, up to the spring above in order to hold it out of the way. That's now nicely up out of the way, and we can see the pads. Note on the pads we've got these anti-rattle or anti-squeal springs, those two there. Note the way they are, and then just pull them out and lay them on the ground. Now the pads, they will just lift out once they are prized out. Lean them sideways, slight lever against the springs, and then lay them down. You'll note this is a 93 car. 93 to 96 have a curve there. Later models, ABS and later, are straight there. So make sure you have the right pads. Now we need to make room for the new pads. The piston here, the single piston, is too far out to fit the pads in. So when we push this back, which we're just about to do, fluid will go back up into the master cylinder and could overflow. So we either siphon a little bit of fluid out of the master cylinder, or my preferred method is what we do is we put a bleed hose onto the brake nipple, undo the brake nipple. It's a 10mm spanner, put it somewhere to catch it. Use a small G-clamp. This is a 4-inch G-clamp. G-clamp's inserted into the hollow inside the piston. Now start winding, and you can see the fluid travelling out and down the pipe. Do it slowly. The piston's nice and free. If you really got to put pressure on this, you should think about following the tutorial on rebuilding the caliper. Yep, that's a good caliper, it's moving really easily. Right, it's gone all the way back. Now I'm going to close the bleed nipple off. Put the cap back on the bleed nipple, keep the dirt out, and take the G-clamp out. Now fitting the pads, we're just going to put a little hint of copper slip on there, and there, that's where the slides are, making absolutely sure we don't get any on the main face. And then we're going to put a fair big blob of copper slip on the back, where it touches the brake caliper here and here. And make absolutely sure we've got none on the brake face. The pad then goes into the slot. We need to squeeze up these little spring clips. Like that. Same with the inner pad. Just a little bit of copper grease on there where they move and may rattle. And some copper grease where the large piston touches. This stops the brakes squealing. This pad's not so bad because it just goes into the slot, there's no little spring clips to push back. Now if you remember these springs we took out, we now need to reinsert them into the holes. They will now of course push the pads apart. We can now release the caliper. Hold the pad, and there we have it down into place. Put the bolt back in. Tighten it up. Right, that's one side done. Before we go any further, we're going to pump the brake pedal to get the pads into contact. Now all we need to do is put the wheel back on, jack it back up, do exactly the same for the other side. At the end, what we need to do is to check the reservoir under the bonnet and make sure that that's on the right level. One last thing while we're here with the camera. This is the top hose. It's this top hose that gives a lot of trouble with perishing. So move that backwards and forwards and have a good look for splits.